everybody, I'm Kate Cass, and welcome to our edition of Let's Talk About. Today, let's talk about the Owl House episode, Yesterday's Lie. Sometimes it can be tough to choose which episodes to highlight for these reviews, especially in a show like the Owl House, where almost every episode is a home run. But with the announcement that the Owl House will be returning for the first of its 3 special conclusions this week, I knew I had to talk about this episode before we saw the continuation of the main story. Because what happened here will likely come to a head in the new special, and I hadn't intended to cover this episode anyway, since it was one of the more divisive ones. But let's start from the beginning. When Luce attempts to create a new portal to the human realm, she doesn't quite make it home, but can see what's going on there. What she discovers is the doppelganger who's been living in her place all this time. As they investigate for a way to help each other out, truths are revealed in less than ideal reunions, and it'll be up to loved ones in both worlds to decide what they really want. The way the season was broadcast, Yesterday's Lie acts as the mid-season finale, and story-wise, that's pretty appropriate because it revisits a lot of the questions that have been raised throughout the show's run before they dedicate the rest of the season to leading up to the season finale, such as having some development in Luce's arc this season, which has been trying to find out how to build a portal so she can see her mom again. It's pretty exciting to see her make some progress in that quest, even if it's the most DIY looking prototype I've ever seen in my life. But what else would you expect from the Owl House fam? However, in an interesting development, instead of Luce being able to step back into her own world, she winds up in this strange realm between realms, where she can look into other worlds, even the demon realm, but not really interact with them. But as long as there's a reflective surface, she can look into any place in any universe she wishes, and is able to talk to anyone who notices her, which leads to some really creative visuals. But the most exciting storyline revisit of this episode has got to be getting more clarity on Luce's doppelganger, this shadowy figure we've seen once or twice throughout the series disguising herself as Luce to presumably make sure her mom doesn't get suspicious that she hasn't heard from her. The first thing we see in this episode is the doppelganger throwing away all of Luce's unique items, cleaning out the life of the real Luce to make room for herself. It does have a nefarious air to it, even if this double doesn't act particularly nefarious. Just that it's off, and while her mom takes notice, she doesn't say anything about this new behavior, but more on Camilla later. As I was watching this, it felt like whoever this doppelganger wasn't just trying to cover for Luce, but completely replace her, which leads us, the audience, to be immediately suspicious of this creature. Luce is our hero. We don't want someone coming in and taking over her life, especially after how hard we've seen her work to get home. As you might imagine, Luce isn't too happy about this either when she finds out. But something that's rather brilliant about this episode is that before we learn why this creature replaced Luce or what her motives are, we get to know her. That this imposter, who goes by the name V, is a lost and scared creature from the demon realm who doesn't mean Luce any ill will. She turns out to be a quiet and timid little creature who just stumbled into what she thought could be a better life for herself, something we know Luce can certainly relate to. It's sweet and tragic all at the same time. It's really impressive how instantly the show endeared its audience to a character who was so ominous before this. In fairness though, that was probably helped by the fact that V has an absolutely precious, weird design and the voice of Amethyst from Steven Universe.
Where would I go if I was a monster?
Luce is understandably angry at first about V replacing her, but once she sees how distressed she is at being found out and trapped, she helps to calm her down. She may be confused, but she doesn't want to hurt V. In fact, they realize that they can help each other out. So when V's distress causes her disguise to falter, resulting in this midway form she has for most of the episode, oh my god, V is adorable! Luce tries to help her find some magic to maintain her disguise. This quest gives us the opportunity to walk around Luce's hometown and see the ways it's connected to the new home she's made in the demon realm. For one, Ida's acquiring, let's call it, of human items to sell on the Boiling Isles has attracted some attention, but mostly as local annoyances. In a really fun callback, Ida apparently sold her Hex's Hold'em cards in the human world, and they become really popular with teens in the area. I don't know. In my experience, teenagers with magical card games are usually not a great combination. But they should be fine, since despite the terrible job she's done covering her tracks, no one has suspected Ida of being a witch, which is very lucky because, as it turns out, Luce's hometown of Graysfield, Connecticut, great name by the way, has a connection to witchcraft. Exploring the town and even getting a look at the local museum offers more insight into the town's history that I didn't think would be so essential to the world building. I was really intrigued to discover that, in a way, Luce has always had a connection to this world she's grown to love. Founded in the 1630s, Graysfield has a history deeply connected to witches and witch hunting. We're told the tale of how two brothers were brought to the demon realm by a witch, and the town is littered with statues and monuments to these brothers who kind of look familiar. The iconography they show of these brothers is very similar to the crude illustrations we'd seen of Philip at that point, the only other human to travel to the Boiling Isles besides Luce. Philip's history was fascinating to me right from the start. It felt like this extra bit of world building on top of the more demon realm exclusive mythology we got in season 1, a bonus story almost. But the deeper we got, the more it became clear how integral the history of this explorer was going to be, and not just to the mission for Luce to get home. Case in point, we had never heard of this brother that's in all the stories surrounding these gentlemen in Graysfield in any of Philip's chronicles Luce has found. So what happened to him? What role does he play in this story? Well, we'll get to that in future episodes, but these little crumbs of backstory were absolutely delectable to me, even if they are by no means the main focus of the episode. As Luce helps V on this quest, we get more insight into what she's been doing as Luce this whole time, and more importantly, why she did all this in the first place. Turns out, V was part of an experiment to bring back an extinct species known as basculin that could feed on magic, also Bellows could study how they were able to do that. If this sounds familiar, it's because we did meet a basculin back in season 1. Bellows resurrected a few basculin to carry out these experiments with. V's actual name is number 5. Wait a minute, a little girl with extraordinary powers running away from a cruel experimenter whose name is a number? That sounds vaguely familiar.
Mouth breather.
As an aside, it is amazing to me how you can trace almost any horrible thing that's happened in this show back to Bellows. Like, I know he's the main villain, but still, if you see any misfortune in the Owl House, cruelty, oppression, your favorite pastry being sold out on a day when you're really in the mood for it, you know where to point fingers. So V didn't just try to find a new life on a whim, it was a means of survival. She didn't do this maliciously, she just wanted a chance at something she's never had before, a real loving home, even if it's not really hers. She's been living this life to the fullest too. She really did go to camp in Luce's place and managed to make quite a few friends. Meeting V makes Luce look at what she kind of threw away in a new light. Not to say that Luce should have been content with the way things were, especially if she wasn't happy, but rather how fortunate she really was to have a warm home and someone who loved her. Not everyone is that lucky. Again, it's not where I expected this plot point to go, but I'm glad for that. This is a much more challenging situation to put in front of Luce, especially at this point in her journey. But just when it seems like this is going to be a simple fetch quest with a dump of perspective on top, of course someone stomps in as an obstacle. In this case, it's a curator of the local museum who fancies himself a demon hunter and is played by Roger Craig Smith.
Who's Roger? He's talking to me.
What is with the casting in this episode? Admittedly, this kind of character can be pretty amusing in a series where things like magic and parallel worlds are indeed a reality, because they see things a lot of other average people don't, but are so confidently off the mark in their research. This guy finds a real demon, but uses it as a way to validate all of his wildly outrageous conspiracy theories.
And they're all sent from Mars to harvest human teeth to power their time machine.
With V captured and in danger of being dissected by this guy, Luce has been forced to do what she's kind of been avoiding for a long time now. All this time, Luce has been worried how her mom would react to her choice to live in the demon realm and become a witch. It's her greatest fear according to Grom. But when she's no longer able to go back home whenever she wants, she becomes desperate to make a new portal so she can see her mom again, so she won't worry about her. Then when she gets close, she realizes that her mom didn't miss her because thanks to V, she never even realized she was gone. Suddenly, Luce has a way to buy herself more time before she has to have this difficult conversation. But now, that option is gone. If she really wants to help V, she's going to have to do what she's been dreading for a long time. And she does it without hesitation. That's one of the things that's so great about Luce. She'll make the tough calls if it means helping someone in trouble, and it turns out that's something she has in common with her mother. So let's talk a bit about Camilla. Camilla's been a somewhat divisive character, I'd say, since our first impression of her is sending Luz off to camp to downplay her more eccentric traits and to hopefully help her mature. A few people didn't like that. But from what we've seen and how Luz speaks about her, to many other fans, it always felt like a very loving relationship. Camilla seems like the kind of character who has a lot on her plate and has trouble balancing it, but does her best to keep things steady so she can offer the biggest serving. This episode has some much needed time dedicated to helping us get to know Camilla better, how she tries to be supportive and outreaching in a very loving manner, from helping woodland critters in distress to understanding and being there for her daughter, or, a demon that she thinks is her daughter. That's the thing about Camilla. Yes, she wants to try and help Luz fit in, but she loves how creative Luz can be and doesn't want to change that. When V starts getting rid of Luz's nerdy things, Camilla finds it a little disconcerting, but puts on a smile to be supportive. This continues when she listens to Luz's story and thinks it's an elaborate roleplay game, which can be frustrating for the audience who knows the truth, sure, but I think it's a trope that's saved by the fact that she's willing to play along. Even when she doesn't really understand this, she's enthusiastic to be included. I think it's a really nice little gesture. Yeah, you want her to believe Luz, but seeing her be so accepting of her daughter's interests and creativity is really sweet. Again, not every kid like Luz is lucky enough to have a parent like that, but some can get lucky enough to have another person's parent care for them in that way, like with V. The progression of Camilla's reaction to realizing the truth is really well executed. When she sees this is real and V is really a demon, she's confused and distraught at first, but once Camilla sees that she's just a scared kid in need, she's more than willing to help, even if she doesn't fully understand what's going on. The way she approaches V and tells her how strong she is, after how worried V was to get Camilla involved and causing her more grief by learning the truth, is too sweet to bear. It's that comforting nature that warmed V to her from the very beginning. And even after finding everything out, Camilla welcomes V back into her home as herself with open arms. But not before getting right up in the curator's obnoxious face, threatening him with small court litigation, and telling him what a pompous crackpot he is before promptly knocking him out. Yep, she's a mom, alright. That was awesome. So, Camilla knows the truth, Luz got to talk to her mom, V doesn't have to hide anymore, everything's okay, right? Well,
I'm trying to hold it together. I really am. But I have never been this scared before. When you come home, promise you'll stay here? Promise me, Luz. Please.
alright, let's address this. This is far and away the most controversial scene in the episode, and probably one of the most of the entire series. The fact that Camilla gets defensive at Luz for her choice to leave, then makes her promise that once she got home to never leave again, was an unpopular decision to say the least. And this isn't the first time I've seen this either. Whenever a show like this presents a parental figure we want to root for and sympathize with, but then they make a questionable choice in their parenting, I found that some viewers can turn on them pretty quickly. There could be two reasons for this. One, people are bringing their own parental baggage into their media depictions, which I can point out, but not really dispute, I suppose. Or two, parents and family media, more often than not, tend to fall into two separate but distinct categories. They're either wise, nurturing figures who always know what to say and do, or neglectful and oblivious with no idea what their kids really get up to. Or occasionally, they just aren't around at all. Rarely do you see the middle ground, the parents who love their kid but worry about them, the ones who want to do what's best for them even when they don't have all the answers, who can be scared and unsure and not always make the best choices, but always make well-meaning ones. But when you go that route, I think it can be more rewarding and more true to life to what kids experience with their own parents as they grow up and start to discover their own independence. Especially in fiction, where those journeys could include dangerous supernatural obstacles. That middle ground is where Camilla lies. Look, I get it. Camilla had her daughter make a binding promise impulsively. That wasn't great. And I understand people feeling hurt by the idea that in order for Luz to make her mother happy, she has to never see her Owl House family again. But I just can't get behind the decision that Camilla doing something that wasn't perfect makes her a bad parent. I think we as an audience are forgetting that we have way more information than she does. Right now, all she knows is that Luz, her only daughter, her only family, is off in another realm she can't reach full of monsters and magic. Of course she's terrified for her safety. All a good parent wants to do is look out for their kid, to keep them safe and cared for. I do think Camilla is letting her own insecurities at how she handled the situation influence her responses here, but again, that makes sense. It doesn't make her a bad parent, just one who doesn't always make the right choices. And that's okay. That's good. Shows like this should depict that, because parents don't always have all the answers, but feel like they need to have them because they have another human life in their hands. Portraying that in a very truthful way in animation could help kids see their parents as people just trying their best, even when their best falls short. And even though there was criticism at this decision, there were also many people praising the choice to portray that kind of relationship. This puts Luz at a crossroads. Will she finally have to choose a world? What will it mean for the family she'll leave behind in doing so? Can she even choose between everyone she loves so much? Well, we've got some time before we'll know for sure. Overall, Yesterday's Lie is not at all the episode I thought it was going to be going in, and in true Owl House fashion, that's what makes it so great. It revisits and finally addresses a lot of storylines that people have been speculating about for a really long time, so that means that it had better deliver. I don't think any of it went in the direction any of us expected it to, and the reaction is a good example of when subverting those expectations goes well, and when it might not. The new world building introduced is intriguing, the voice cast is stacked, and great because it's stacked, and the story juggles a lot of plot points, but does it in a very smooth, amusing, almost downplayed way, only to end with an absolute gut punch. Whether it's the good kind or the bad kind of gut punch will be up to the viewer. I've already made my case, and as usual, you are always free to agree or disagree. But I think I can definitively say that the promise Luz made to her mom is not where this conversation is going to end. The upcoming first special of what was supposed to be season 3 looks like it'll be revisiting this, and in an interesting way, as both of Luz's worlds will be colliding under less than ideal circumstances. I'm personally looking forward to seeing these issues addressed again, and how these new developments will affect both Luz and Camilla's views on the situation they found themselves in. Either way, it'll probably give us a better idea of what Luz's family is going to look like by series end. Thanks for watching, everyone. Definitely let me know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. That's why the series is called Let's Talk About. I want to give a very special thanks to my patrons who help support my content, including David L. Sproul, Sebastian Canino of Cinema Again Reviews, Chelsea Crandall, Hawk Hero, Jinx Productions, and Wait in the Wings. If you'd like to join these fine people in supporting my content while getting cool exclusive perks, including first reactionary impressions on new episodes of The Owl House, the long-awaited season 2 finale one should be up on the Patreon when this video goes up, and the one for thanks to them will be up soon after, you can check out my Patreon page at the link in the description, as well as some other social media if you'd like to check out any of those. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you guys next time.